Hi all, it's great to be hosting another FIS interview, innovation interview. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Susanne Chishti. Susanne and I have met each other many times at fintech conferences, and this is actually the first time, even though through a pandemic, that we're on a Teams call together. To introduce myself, my name is Silvia Mensdorff. I run the FIS Banking Solutions team in Europe. I'm very passionate about fintech and financial services and how they change the world. I'm also very passionate about diversity. And I know Susanne is as passionate about these topics as I am. So thank you very much, Susanne, for taking the time.
Thanks, Silvia, for inviting me.
So I really wanted to know, and I'm sure everybody wants to hear the story of what inspired you to found FintechCircle and what the journey has also taught you.
Yes, it started out, I came from Austria, from Vienna, where I studied business. And then I moved to Berkeley for my MBA, for 1 year MBA exchange program, and worked then in the Silicon Valley in Cupertino for a fintech company. But at that time, the word fintech didn't exist. It was called Tandem Computers, and Tandem, was acquired later on by Compaq and then by HP. But basically, it was a fintech company at that time, 25 years ago. And then I went back to Vienna, finished my degree. And so I had this fintech expertise, 25 years too early, you could say. And then I joined Accenture learning to code. So I learned coding C++ and developing user interfaces. And then, I moved into the traditional banking side. So I joined Morgan Stanley, became a vice president after 7 years. And then I moved on to other banks. And then almost 20 years later, in 2014, I could see in London that there was a new era of startups emerging, which all focus on financial innovation, on fintech, basically. And this term fintech was very new at the time. And for me, all of a sudden, my whole life started to make sense again, because I had the technology knowledge. And then I knew about finance, but I never merged it all in my area of expertise and jobs which I had. And so by realizing that the technology in fintech really will be the future of finance, and fintech will be the future of finance, I decided to leave banking and my job in the city in London to launch FintechCircle. And the idea was to create an investor network, an angel investor network, where we as people who have got expertise in financial services invest in the best startups. So our goal, that's the core of FintechCircle, is we invest in the best startups, in the best fintech companies there are, in order to help them scale up and grow their businesses. And we are angel investors. But then, of course, Silvia, as you know, when we started to write books as well, so we wrote 7 books so far across, fintech, insurtech, how to use AI in finance, about payment technologies. And we also developed films. So we are now working on our 3rd film with ITN here in the UK, which is about fintech for good. So how can you use fintech for good? Key topic nowadays as well. And so we expanded, but initially the reason how I came to fintech was really having 2 legs, 1 leg in technology and 1 leg in finance, and really being happy that finally I could bring both together, for a very holistic approach into the future. And I think fintech as well, what we found as well, like Silvia, all the conferences we met before, I find them all very, very inclusive actually, and very exciting. And that's often a difference to, I think, the previously old style of banking, which was more stale, more old-fashioned, and fintech is new, it's more innovative, more dynamic. And so it's much more fun as well, so I really enjoy being in the fintech sector now since almost 10 years. And I think it will be the future of finance in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a fantastic story and a real inspiration, how suddenly all the different parts of your life start making sense.
Yes.
I can only echo what you're saying, right? This is a really exciting space, and there's so much going on and so much to contribute. And I think kind of looking at how can you build a business that is a good business, but then also pivoting to how we can contribute something good to the space is really inspirational. Now, I've always found it great when I'm speaking to you, because you're a founder as a woman, and we all know kind of some of the spaces that we come from are not very diverse. So how difficult have you found it to make FintechCircle diverse, and what are you finding with all these fintechs that you're supporting when it comes to diversity? How do you approach that subject?
Yeah, it's a key topic, Sylvia. And I think, diversity and inclusion, and it starts at the top, of an organization. So being a female founder, being a female CEO helps enormously, because you set the agenda, you can set the vision, for the company, but also for any partnerships, we are involved in. And we have got, a no jerks policy. And this basically means, we only work with people whom we like, whom we appreciate, and who have got shared values as we do. And I think that's also important. As a startup, you can choose, to some extent whom you're working with. And so that's one of our goals. But I would say in general, because I'm on the board of a UK bank. I'm also on the board of a FTSE 250 company here in the UK. And I would say in general, when you look at, how to make an organization more inclusive, the key thing is there has to be a priority from the top, because it doesn't happen automatically. So it has to be, a clear goal from the top management to make the company inclusive and diverse. And this starts out, with setting the right strategy overall. And then it goes to the hiring. Whom do you hire? Do you look to hire, at graduate level 50-50 between genders, and how fast do you promote people whom you hire? So you need to measure, how you invest in diversity and how you make sure that the people you hire get, promoted at the same speed, get paid the same amounts, so that you really take it seriously. And then I think it's also about making sure that you measure your success, and that you provide a safe space for people, for employees, by being open and talking about their personal lives. People always say it's important to bring to bring yourself to the company, to enjoy working, because you get appreciated for what you add. And I think that's really key. And I saw this, very good analogy, which said, diversity is about inviting people to come to a party. And then inclusion is about inviting them to dance. And then the best form, of inclusion is that people also can take their own music, because you want to be invited to the party, you want to be asked to dance and to shine at work and to contribute. And if you can also take your own music, you can take your own style, how you do things, your own creativity, then the whole company will shine, because they can benefit from the best each person can contribute.
Well, that's and as you was thinking, inviting people to dance, I'm thinking, oh, it's just like a silent disco.
Yes.
But I don't think it's like it shouldn't be like a silent disco, because in a silent disco, everybody's in their own space, right? But I'm thinking, oh, you're going to invite people to dance. This is going to be about asking other people to get out of their comfort zone and actually dancing somebody else's dance. And then and giving each other that benefit of really daring to almost live in somebody else's world, and it needs to be reciprocal. When I think about diversity, and I think you think the same way, it's not just about gender diversity, but it's obviously about, what's your background in terms of affluence, what's your cultural background, what's your sexual orientation. So there's a lot of different diversity topics, and it's just, being open-minded and letting these people in, right? And we've spent quite a bit of time in the fintech space. What I find, it then influences how inclusive your services are. So do you think there is more that we as a fintech industry can do to make those services inclusive? And do you think diversity as part of fintech is important in that?
Exactly, you're right.
And do you find that there is a lot that we still need to do when it comes to providing inclusive services? Do you still think there is more that we need to do?
I mean, I think we do a lot, but I think there's always more. You know, I think inclusion, diversity never stops. It's an ongoing journey. We always have to become better at it. You know, and as you said, there are so many areas of inclusion. You know, one area now is about older people. You know, who can't read small print, who are not technologically so much aware, or who are open to scammers. You know, so how can we protect these vulnerable, you know, older people, for example? So I think there's a lot different subtleties, you know, of being really inclusive and helping all parts of our society to really participate, you know, in our financial system and protect them equally.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's also where fintech has been really good at looking at a particular customer journey and really excelling at it. And so you can think about looking at the customer journey for somebody who really struggles reading and working with digital and making that much easier and much simpler, or protecting some of the vulnerable people. But there's so much work that we can still do. So it's really exciting. So switching gears on you a little bit, we talked about digital, take it to the next, which is the metaverse, right? So we have this new term, or, you know, it's now almost a year old, of the metaverse, basically our virtual reality in that we're going to live. So I'm really curious, what are your thoughts on the metaverse? Do you think this is something that is here to stay? And how do you think businesses will be affected by this new world? And what kind of innovations do you see coming in?
Yeah, I definitely think that the metaverse and extended reality are here to stay, and that it will be the new generation or the next generation of the internet. You know, people refer to this Web 3.0. And I think there will be lots of different applications in which we're going to see. Current hurdles are that the devices, you know, the big headsets are often too clunky, too heavy. It's not the interoperability is missing. But I think once those issues are being resolved and more people can get access to the metaverse, it will be used by more people. And at the moment, it's used by online gamers a lot. You know, lots of online gaming, it takes place, but also people who are interested in digital art, you know, selling and buying NFTs, for example. But long term, you know, I can see a world where the metaverse helps us across education, for example. You know, I remember once I went to the Louvre in Abu Dhabi, you know, a few years ago, and via the, you know, classes, I entered a painting, and this painting allowed me to walk on the bridge, you know, in this beautiful impressionist painting and see the landscapes. And I think this could be in the metaverse, can be extended where you then basically talk, you know, to the painter. You learn about, you know, Leonardo da Vinci, you learn about different artists in different times, and you understand why they painted those paintings. You know, you can learn about art, you can learn about history, like having a conversation with Napoleon, you know, about freedom and about fraternities. So there's so much, I think, what can be done, you know, in the metaverse, and equally about collaboration, you know, working with people across continents, where at the moment, of course, we use Zoom and we use, you know, Microsoft Teams, but in the metaverse, you will be able to actually sit next to each other and feel as if you sit next to each other. And if you might have to, you know, use as an engineer to engineer, co-design products, you can see yourself doing that together. So there's lots of opportunity in this space. Equally in terms of customer service. You know, when there's customer service calls being made, at the moment it's either via chat functions, you know, on the phone, or you literally call somebody. But in the metaverse, you probably have a customer service support person, you know, next to you, helping you to fix the washing machine or the, you know, something which is broken at home. And so there will be huge applications, and I think it will not be long before every website will include a function to enter the metaverse via a tool, and every company will have a metaverse site, you know, where they offer different solutions and services. And I think at the moment what we see is, you know, branding. That's a big thing, of course, you know, companies building their brands, you know, from luxury companies to Nike and sports companies. And of course, virtual concerts, you know, virtual events. So I think it will be an extension of our internet life. And I think a very exciting extension for all of us to be part of. And so yes, I look forward into the future, when all these devices become more affordable as well, where more people can participate in the metaverse.
Yeah, and it sounds like the metaverse will enable us to include more people, but then of course we need to get them there, right?
Yes.
But from that perspective, the pandemic has kind of been in our favor, because I think it's driven digitalization so far ahead, right? My mom, who's 76, never ordered anything on the internet, and she's now very savvy in ordering things on the internet. And
Yes.
so hopefully it's helped and enabled to bring that forward. You touched a little bit about digital assets and the metaverse. So do you think that digital assets will become even more important as part of the metaverse?
I do think so, because, to some extent, that's what the metaverse will contain. It will contain digital assets, in the form of digital art, virtual goods, even experiences, a ticket to a concert in the metaverse. So all these will be done via, non-fungible tokens, NFTs. And as a user of the metaverse, you can either create your own, if you're like an artist, you could mint your own art, put it into the metaverse and sell it, or create your own art exhibition in the metaverse, for example, or you can buy these digital assets, or you can, like in the real world, you could probably then do different types of, transactions. You could even license, knowledge. So I think almost everything what we can do in the real world, you'll be able to do in the metaverse as well, using these digital assets. And using NFTs, as one element, allows you to gain exclusive access. For example, if you want to buy property, on the metaverse, you could do that via an exclusive, access via an NFT, which gives you access to a location in the metaverse, and buy a virtual property deed, almost a virtual property deed. And so I think these digital assets are the new toolkit almost. So it's the existing toolkit already to some extent. When you think about games, now when you play an online game, you can buy your new skin. You can put multiple skins depending which game you want to play, and those ones you can buy already. But I think there will be much more than that, and much more possibilities in the future.
So when you then think about these, and you use the word buying, what's your view of the future of money? Where's all of this taking money if you think ahead?
I mean, often people say cryptocurrencies are the future of money, I don't believe in that necessarily. I think for me, the future of money is a variety of ways to pay. To some extent, it will continue what we use now. It will be our credit cards, our debit cards, it will be our digital wallets. You continue to use that. There are many industries which continue to use cash. Many countries, still have got 30% people are using cash. But I would say, in terms of using money in a metaverse environment, again, you could use fiat currencies, or you could use digital currencies such as cryptocurrencies. And here, of course, we know that there are 20,000 cryptocurrencies out there at the moment. In fact, it's more. I looked it up yesterday. It's more than 20,000 already. And in reality, 99% will collapse. So it's very important not to confuse these digital currencies with a stable, secure way of storing your money, because they are not. They're 99% won't make it. So I would say cryptocurrencies are a way of to one extent to experiment with new ways of paying. When you think about the biggest ones like Ether, Bitcoin, Ripple, those cryptocurrencies, they of course are worth something, because you've got this underlying technology in the decentralized ledger, the blockchain technology. But how much it's worth, that's the hard bit. That's where people have got divided opinions. Some people say, those cryptocurrencies are worth only what the buyer wants to pay for. So it's basically it's worth nothing unless there's somebody who wants to buy it. And other people say it's worth a lot, because you've got this complicated distributed ledger underneath, and therefore it has got an intrinsic value. But no matter which side one is on, the key thing is they're not backed up by any central bank. And therefore, another way of money in the future, of course, will be the central bank digital currencies, the CBDCs, which central banks might issue. There are not many yet who made up their mind. Some central banks have said already they won't use it for B2C, so for us individuals, and they won't use it, but they might use it as a B2B solution. But I think that's still out there to be decided. So I would say the future of money is a diverse, and I guess that's a good thing. We talk about diversity today. Will be a diverse combination of different ways of paying. And it's up to us to choose what's most convenient, what's most inexpensive, what's most appropriate at every moment and where we are. But I think we should not confuse, those ways of paying as a way of saving, because that's where I would use different ways of saving. I would not use cryptocurrency as a way of saving. It's more as a way of speculating.
Yeah, I think it's more of a speculative investment. That's how I've always looked at kind of cryptocurrencies out there. And then we will see, you touched on central bank digital currency, and I think there are opportunities there, also linked to then linking it to assets, linking it to the metaverse, where there is going to be a lot of opportunity. I love that you talk about money and the way to pay as something diverse, because I think at the end of the day, that's how we've built up the system. There is so much cultural approaches. I was interestingly talking to somebody about here in the Netherlands, request to pay has really taken off. We've got a system called Tikkie, and you basically say to people, oh, don't worry, I'll Tikkie you, and you send them a request to pay through WhatsApp. And we were talking about that, and this person was in Spain, and they said, oh, that would never take off in Spain, because in Spain, when somebody owes you,
yes,
they will come to you and they will pay you. It's absolutely not done to say, hey, you owe me. Yeah, so that's very Dutch. So I loved the cultural difference in how money is approached and how payments is approached. Yes. And I think the big challenge that we have in the financial ecosystem as a whole is to make sure that everybody still understands what the options are and what risks and what securities are associated with all of the options. I think that's a big challenge because it's such a complex environment. So sometimes people just don't understand. Yes. It's sometimes challenging for us as experts to understand all of the options. Exactly. So I think that's going to be a big challenge. So really interesting to hear how you look at crypto and how that's going to develop. So if I may ask you this as a last piece of this interview, if you look at where we were 6 months ago now maybe 8 months ago, from an economical standpoint, from the way the world worked, from what we thought was true, and you look at today, where we've gone from almost negative interest rates to a very high inflation, where we've gone from a really relatively stable environment in the Western world with one superpower really invading. What does that mean to startups, to new companies, and how is money what's going to happen over the next 2-3 years as we find our way in that new normal?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, Silvia. And I would say it's very difficult because I think we're in an environment which most of us have never seen. We've never seen stagflation before, most of us in our lifetime, but we always have a stagnation in our economy combined with inflation. And an environment so far in the last 20 years, often the central banks, even recently, central banks was almost coming to the rescue. COVID happened, the central bank came to the rescue with quantitative easing. Now we're in an environment where the central banks can't do that anymore because their big goal is to now, as you said, to reduce inflation to, often in some countries like in the UK, we've got more than 10% already. We want to go down to 2%, that's where it should be. So there is no quantitative easing, and the opposite, interest rates are being raised now. And if we do that, and that's what's happening now, it has got a huge impact. It's an impact on on loans, has got an impact on mortgages, has got an impact on business loans, equally has got an impact on valuations, because when you think about how do you value your company, when you use discounted cash flow models, interest rates are one of the biggest variables in those models. So what you do now as a startup, and that's what we, when we talk about, the whole environment as investors as well, investors often think and are currently waiting. Some investors are waiting to see what happens, in the economy. And they are often saying, we're looking what will be the Lehman Brothers moment this time around. And as we remember, 13 years ago, the last financial crisis, with Lehman Brothers collapsing, this was the kind of where everything collapsed even further. And so lots of investors think, what's going to happen in the next few months, which will be the catalyst to really a recessionary environment globally. And if that belief is the case, then of course you would not want to invest now, but you would want to keep your cash on the side in order to enter the market when the prices have come down, because then you can buy cheaper, you can invest cheaper. So this is, one way of looking at it. The other areas, of course, that's, when you're a startup raising money at the moment and you want to raise money from investors who don't have to invest, then it's difficult because you can't access the money so easily as you could, a year ago or half a year ago. But on the other side, of course, there are, lots of funds out there who have to invest because their mandate tells them that they have to deploy the money within a certain period of time. So this money is still available. And I think what will be happening now, I think, is that investors will decide, if we are in an inflationary environment, which we are, which asset classes do best. And what we do know is, when you put your money in cash, you guaranteed lose 10% per year at the moment, with inflation. If you put your money into fixed term, interest rates, bonds, you again will lose money if interest rates go up. If you put your money into high risk assets, it might be risky. So where do you invest? That's a big question. All investors have got, what is a safe haven? And so lots of people went into gold, but equally people say what we should invest in is high quality companies. And that's, I think, is the case because high quality companies will survive. For them, actually, the environment now might be even better because they are able to get access to potentially to better talent, get access to long-term capital, patient capital from family offices, for example, who think more long-term. And so there is always the opportunity for high-quality businesses to really thrive. And we've seen it in the last financial crisis, where lots of the big names which we know now, the tech giants, were founded, in the last crisis. So I think it's never doom and gloom. There are always, opportunities to be made, but I think it is a more difficult environment now than we had a year ago. And therefore, it requires more long-term thinking, more scenario planning, for any types of company and for entrepreneurs to manage their cash flow well, because cash is king, as it never has been more important than now, I think, to make sure that you've got enough cash, enough liquidity, in your startups, in your scale-ups, any type of company, in fact.
Yeah, so to me, absolutely. It seems like it switched from growth at any price to sustainable and real growth. And I think, from an FIS perspective, that feels like a much better place to be in than just growth at any price.
Exactly.
It's been lovely talking to you. I look forward to seeing you in Amsterdam.
Yes.
Very soon. And thank you very much. That was super insightful.
Thank you very much, Silvia. Lovely to see you again. And I look forward to meeting you in person at the next event in Amsterdam.